take this position from the miner, we maintain that until the miner then closes the position, and then we look at the returns every day that we're seeing on that position. So we take that into daily returns, and the daily returns are actually what are used to evaluate the quality of the miner over time. Essentially, is an input into all of these risk-adjusted returns that about in a minute. Paul?
We lost Paul.
Push to talk, Paul?
This is a good run, folks.
Hello? I mean, I'm sure we can all.
Do you want to just run through this, Thomas?
Sure. So essentially, risk-adjusted returns are looking at the return on top of a position, or the daily returns, relative to the risk exposure from the positions. So there's a variety of different metrics that we may look at. There's a number of classical indicators. We choose Sharpe ratio, Sortino ratio, Omega ratio. We also look at a T statistic, so the statistical significance of the miner over time. So these are evaluated over a period of 90 days. We need a demonstrated historical performance from each of our miners. Now, of course, you may ask why risk-adjusted returns. Essentially, when we're looking to grow the amount of capital that we're eventually going to deploy, we need to maintain a level of balance between risk and return, essentially, as we do that. So our miners aren't tasked with just infinitely increasing the size of the portfolio. It's a careful balance, essentially. Of course, the prop trading groups may use just a Sharpe ratio. We use a combination of indicators to essentially look at the characteristic of our miners in trading. But this is pretty unique in a distributed sense due to the fact that there's a number of challenges that we may see that traditional prop trading groups don't. Now, that's kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of this is beneficial. For an example, as a miner, I could register a number of strategies. That's fantastic if I want to test different ideas in crypto and then one for FX. In prop trading groups, you're typically isolated or siloed into a single domain. So we give our miners more opportunity to test new ideas and grow in new ways. It also poses unique challenges. Another one is a limit on the number of miners. Traditional prop trading can go thousands of miners in their field. The benefit of this is that regardless of your background, depending on your performance, if you're a performance strategy, you have the opportunity to succeed and grow your prominence in our network. So again, a double-edged sword, but it is a unique challenge.
Sorry about that.
Paul, are you there? Okay, cool. All right, I was going to say, anything you want to add? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you for that, Thomas. So I just wanted to sort of focus on why risk-adjusted rewards, right? Returns, we all care about our investment portfolios, right? We enjoy it when they go up as much as possible, but this always depends on the amount of tolerable risk, right? So high returns could be due to poor luck or good luck or unsustainable, while risk-adjusted measurements reflect skill and often are associated with more capacity, and perhaps, but most importantly, are more predictive of future performance. And this reveals really a deeper statistical truth, really the separation of signal from noise. It's the foundational concept in statistical inference, and lots of ML and AI depend on this. And it's how reliable it measures how reliable your measurements are. And you'll note, like in our 5 measurements, like the well-known Sharpe ratio. If you think about the Sharpe ratio, and you just take away the risk-free rate from the Sharpe ratio, it's essentially like a T-stat from statistics, right? So it's a signal to noise ratio. So that's why it's so important, and that's why prop firms, including ourselves, measure performance based on risk-adjusted measurements. And there are many ways to do this. So we use 5 different measurements. We use a weighted average across all these measurements simply because each of them measure they're all correlated, some are highly correlated, but they all measure different aspects of risk. And if and when new measurements do develop, we will include those in our weighted average. So that's why we use risk-adjusted measurements. Maybe Thomas wants to talk about the unique challenges as a distributed system.
I think we're good to move to the network model, which we're really excited about, and we want to tell you because I don't think we've been building a lot under the hood, but we actually have a demo we want to show you as well. So if you want to touch on the diversification and the utility of miners, Paul.
Yeah, sure. So as much of the fact that our incentive mechanism focuses on maximizing return per unit of risk at the miner level, that does not necessarily mean that that's true at the portfolio level, right? So we could have all miners maximizing return per unit of risk, but at the portfolio level, we need to do this as well. And so uniqueness of different miners is also important. And so we've developed a lot of tools and technology on our end to enable us to do this. So Thomas built a backtester for us to backtest portfolios of miners. We've added different types of optimizers to help us in this endeavor, and we're in the process of adding risk models and alpha models, all to help us do this in conjunction with the backtester.
So kind of one of the unique challenges, again, double-edged sword, but pretty incredible opportunity, is the fact that we have this rotating door of quality coming in from our miners. So essentially, at any given moment, somebody who starts today could be at the top of our rankings in 6 months from now. And we need to essentially have a dynamic network model construction such that it can respond to new talent as it's arriving and as it's getting incorporated into our structure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we actually imagine the network model and how we've actually been able to build around this. I think in the next slide. Okay, do you mind if I share my screen here?
Yeah, let's switch to you and then nobody talk except Thomas so we don't get a massive echo. Go ahead and share, Thomas, and we'll come back.
Okay, so this is one of the models that Paul has actually been working on in the background. Now, I want you guys to all know this is back-tested on top of our miners.
Hold up. We're still seeing your Discord. You just switch the screen.
Yeah. Did you want to pick the right screen there, Thomas?
Thanks, guys. Yay? Nay?
No, it's still on your Discord. Do you want to send me the link, Thomas?
Yay?
Yes, there we go. All right. Good.
Okay. All right. So again, back tested on top of our miners, but essentially what we're doing, and Paul, you can go dive into this a little bit more if you'd like, but we're essentially looking at different ways to optimize the daily returns on top of our miners. The benefit of having a custom backtesting engine is that we can blend different types of exposures that we would like to see on the products that we're actually releasing. So in this case, this is one of the crypto-specific models that, again, Paul has been working on. And of course, we can see the longitudinal historical performance of it. But we can also see how it's actually being composed of miners in real time. So essentially, if I pan through this, you can actually see the composition of different miners, and essentially the weight that they're taking on as they open a position. So I can read you through a line of this, for example. At this moment, we have this miner who's taking about a 6% composition on our network. And essentially what that means is that 6% of the output of our network at that moment is because of the fact that this miner is participating. So if this miner opens a Bitcoin position, we'll take that into consideration with or with a 6% contribution, essentially. And you can see the positions as they're open or evolving over time on the bottom here. So you can see, for example, how we're considering ETH or Bitcoin over time. So this is kind of like an under the hood perspective on what our network model and backtesting engine actually looks like. And Arrash will talk about this later, but we actually plan to make a lot of this open source so that people can actually come and build models on top of our miners as part of this competition that we want to grow.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you want to share again, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up here. Second. Right. We're popping open Glitch Financial. All right, so the next thing we want to show is what does this look like for the end user, right? We just talked about the network model, but what does it look like for someone that wants to use that model? And so really our goal, right, when we think of the ethos of BitTensor, it's democratizing access. It's opening this up so people can get access to the validator, to the data. And for us, we want to take that same ethos when it came to who can use the data and trying to unlock this sophisticated product for the world. And so when we think about Glitch Financial, really what we're trying to build is like an open hedge fund. We want to give as many people access to the outputs of the network as possible. Whether you want to start with a smaller amount of funds and scale up, or if you're a larger player and you want to get started, both are optional. And so we've already rolled out our beta. And I can walk you through some stuff here of how Glitch Financial actually looks internally. And we've obviously been building this and kind of the first time we're actually showing it to a broader audience. So very excited to walk through this. So when we come here, the left bar, there's a few different options. There's overview, which is kind of account overview. It shows all your potential accounts that you have across, crypto, FX, future markets, etc. So you essentially can see them all in one place and all your returns. So if you split your funds across many exchanges or brokers, you'll actually be able to see it consolidated in one view here. The account manager tab is really for our wealth managers that we're onboarding. So we're in talks with a few, but again, we are scaling appropriately on our end. So this is all will take time to play out, but we have interested parties who essentially want to be able to manage accounts in a non-custodial way. So their clients would come in, create accounts, and they would manage exposure across various strategies all in one place within Glitch Financial. The strategies tab are where you can manage your personal strategies. So if you're not an account manager, this tab wouldn't be available, but the strategies tab would be available. And in there, you can choose to add new strategies. You can connect to other brokers or exchanges with your strategies. So a lot of different options there I'll go into. History is just your history of trades. Notifications are notifications in real time on trades that occur. Whether they're picked up, fail, you'll be able to receive notifications to fix problems. Settings, obviously your personal information, and then documentation, which we have a whole help desk that's been built out with automated bots to help respond to your needs. So all of this is live. This is in production. You can see app.glitch.financial. This is prod. Now on the dashboard side, notifications in the top right corner. You can go to dark mode, light mode, nice and friendly on a UI side if people don't like light mode. I prefer light mode. And then here you can see the windows, time windows of data. I'm just looking at the last 24 hours. This is one of our testing accounts. So right now we're working on our beta FX models. Right now we have a crypto model out. We're working on, Paul just completed our beta crypto model, a new update to it. And now we're currently testing out our FX models. So this account is just one of our accounts that's for testing FX. This is real funds, like that's real money on a live account. This is the real account change on it. Account aggressiveness is essentially how aggressive you want to be in terms of essentially like leverage usage. So if you want to be more aggressive in terms of returns and drawdown, you have a scale you can choose from to increase or decrease that. Open orders, obviously how many open orders you have, closed orders, number of closed orders that have occurred over the last window right here in 24 hours. So if I go over here to open orders, clearly nothing, and then you can see full trade history here. Again, these are actual trades that occurred and that you can review if you'd like. If I come over here to strategies, you can go ahead and add a strategy. So let's go ahead and just quickly click in there. So there's a variety here that we've been working on, some behind the hood, some that are from validator program that we'll talk about that are being added. And so if you click in here and say you want to choose the network model alpha, you can go ahead and review information in here. And then you can go ahead and say select accounts. And these are the exchanges that we currently have available that you can pick from. MooX, Bybit, Hyperliquid, DYDX, Binance. All of these are available. And we'll continue to add more exchanges you can choose from. So again, Glitch Financial is completely non-custodial. You are connecting your account, you are handling your funds. We do not have access to those funds. So this is a complete SaaS product. If you know what SaaS is, software as a service. So you can choose from here, you can add the account, you can choose your setup. Essentially just from here, you just click pay, and then you configure it by putting in your credentials. And if you ever need help, you can always come over here to the Glitch Help Center. We have a full help center built out where you can submit requests, review information to help you get started, and also contact our CS team in Discord. We have an entire Discord server dedicated to our user base. So let's go back to strategies. And in here, I can go ahead and edit my account. And when I edit my account, I can choose my trading settings. So, you know, when it comes to FX, there's a higher minimum of 15K that we have as a setting. And users during beta cannot play with $1 million. There are constraints. So I have a super account, so I can kind of change this however I'd like. But to limit risk and as capacity increases on our network, the amount of funds that we can take on and the strategies can take on will increase. So I have a trade setting of 50K, but again, during beta, this is a limited of values. So you'll be able to put that in there. You'll be able to choose your order fill aggressiveness. So this is to ensure that your orders fill, right? So, you know, if you want to make sure that you're not sitting in a limit order, you know, you can choose if you want to be conservative, moderate, or aggressive to ensure those orders fill, and you can pay a premium if you'd like for those fills. Over time, I imagine that this gets less aggressive due to latency improvements, which we'll also talk about. Aggressiveness multiplier. So that's what I was talking about in terms of, you know, the higher this value is, the more returns or drawdown you would see. It's just a multiplier on the size of your positions. Scroll down here, you can see this is live. The trade pairs that are enabled for trading in the FX markets. So that is everything here. Yeah, that's a full overview of Glitch Financial, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end as well. Yeah, let's do it. That's correct. All the strategies, all the data that's being shown here is directly from the network. Yeah, so you put in essentially your credentials. Like, say, for example, you had a Bybit account or a Hyperliquid account. You would pass us your credentials to be able to execute orders, but not have access to your funds. So there's essentially role-based access controls on keys or on accounts that exist on MetaTrader 5, Binance, Bybit, all the major exchanges to make sure that we cannot touch funds. It's only for order execution purposes. So you would just pass that in, you just put it in directly into that, and it connects, and you can execute trades on whatever funds that you dedicate. So if you notice on the settings page, I was able to change how much I wanted to trade on. That's the amount. That's an amount setting that I can choose based off of how much I have in the account. Yeah, so what it's doing is it's just saying, okay, increase the order size. So we have, the way this is executing is actually like every user has their own bots dedicated bots. And so the bots have their own configurations. And so the configurations are set and can be changed on a per user basis. So when you're changing this, it's reflected on your bot, which is reading the data and then executing for you. Yeah, every user has their own setup essentially, and so they have their own configuration. So when it's reading the bots are reading the data, they are essentially performing a set of actions on the data received to mimic what settings you have here. So if you've increased aggressiveness, it's just taking the order size relative to the account size and saying, let's increase that size or decrease it, right? Because I can also choose to decrease if I'd like. Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So the way that it works is on P10, you're actually describing the account size. So there's an idea of percent of portfolio, essentially, that's dedicated to every signal we receive. So when the miner says, I want to take a trade, they say on what size. So we can essentially replicate that via a network model with a weighted model and translate that into their account based off their size that they choose here. Right. So the way that this works in the full pipeline, and Thomas may want to chime in because I'm sure I'll miss some things here, but the whole pipeline is miners send in the signals, the network receives it. So instead of typically what you see is on most networks is a validator ping the miners for data or requests. Instead, the miners are sending it to the validators. And then the validators are essentially analyzing the data on a second by second basis to ensure proper data, essentially the order information is accurate. Now, so the validators receive the signal from the miner. From there, we've created a pipeline from validator to infrastructure, our infrastructure. And we actually just outputted a new feature to reduce the latency on that tremendously. I think Jordan worked on this, and now we have it at sub-second latency, which is pretty great. Obviously for trading, it's very important. From the PTN side, we have a server where you can a validator can set up, which can be consuming data from an output via streaming. So our R&D infrastructure is essentially reading from the validator, consuming the data, and then referencing the network model that's been created, this weighted model, and then saying, okay, say there's an order that came through of 0.1x, right? 10% of portfolio from a miner. So it would take the order, consume it on the R&D side, like our infrastructure side, and then say, okay, reference a network model. Okay, this miner has 10% of it. Okay, so now we're going to fill on 1% of this person's account size based off of the model and the signal received from this miner based off the factors. So now it's at 1%. Now they choose aggressiveness multiplier, say 1x, so it'll execute on 1% of their portfolio, right? Their size of their account, 50K. It would execute on 1% of that, so $500 on a 1x multiplier. Now, if I move this to 2x, it would be executing on $1,000. It'd be acting as if your account allocation times the aggressiveness multiplier is the size of your account. So it's acting as if your account is 100K. So the order sizes are simply increasing or decreasing based off this aggressiveness multiplier that we have set here. I think actually Paul might want to talk about it and kind of where we're going. I think that would be a good transition. I can go back to the slides too. Yeah, we're onboarding users right now. We are taking our time because obviously bugs. This is brand new and it's a rather large endeavor. We've had very interested parties, people very excited about this, wanting to use it. And we were trying to onboard users as quickly as possible, but at the same time, with any new system, any new platform, there are bugs. So we are in beta. So we are onboarding users appropriately with appropriate size. So just a heads up there, this is being rolled out. And then our goal is essentially start in Q3, allow anyone in certain regions, right? This is an important factor, is, we do need to do this all appropriately according to regulations. So those that are eligible will be able to sign up and review strategies. And then every strategy will have a certain amount of assets under management that it's willing to take on, essentially capital. And that amount of capital will increase as we start to develop some new features, which we'll hit on as well in the presentation. Yeah, so me and Jake, we've had this conversation, and my vision. Like when we think about what normal investors, like a typical retail investors had access to, they've had access to scams, very aggressive martingale strategies that blow up. They've never had access to sophisticated strategies, anything that an accredited investor would have, say, in the US. When I say accredited investor, you have to have a certain amount of capital to meet the requirements to even get access to a hedge fund, which then has to accept you as a client. So what we're building is so different than what a typical or retail investors ever had access to. And that's the whole vision. That was our mission here, is to build something that actually works for people that they can rely on. And that's why we built it. So they've never had access to something like this, never had proper access to risk-adjusted returns. And so that's the idea. That's what we want to enable for them. Yeah, so when we talk about like long term, right, like this becoming extremely popular, which is our goal, there's two things. One, we haven't really hit on it yet, but there's this program we want, which is the active validator program. Essentially, this layer of abstraction between the signals generated and what's seen as the orders on Glitch Financial becomes more complex, right? So this layer of abstraction between the signals received by validators and what you see as an order placed will get more complex and more competitive with time, right? So that's one component, is the data, this idea of like a signal loss, right? Which is something that we definitely think about internally. There's two factors to it. One is complexity of the strategy developed. Second is the rotating door of miners, right? So it would be very hard to reverse engineer. However, let's just say this becomes billions of dollars we're taking on, right? Tens of billions, and it gets more and more complex. The last piece is switching from non-custodial to custodial. So allowing validators, which are going to be part of our program, ourselves, to switch from this non-custodial system to a custodial system where they take on their funds. That's something that we're already thinking about switching to, especially as we go through proper regulations through the SEC, CFTC, things like that, which we are working towards. We are hiring a director of investments directly for that. So that everything can turn to custodial, and then it's kind of like you have access to all these pretty much hedge funds. I mean, that's what this is. It's access to the resources to really see the scale. So that's the idea.
this chasm?
Yeah, I think right now it's just disrupt, right? Like when we always talk about building on BitTensor, it's about how can we build disruptive systems. And, you know, when we get there, I think it's going to be beautiful. I mean, I don't know. I think, you know, we've been called the heretic of Wall Street already by multiple institutional players, and I think that's wonderful. So when we get there, we'll face it and we'll plan. But that's the goal, is to try to disrupt as much as possible.
Well, I didn't want to disrupt too much of your presentation, so please continue.
Great. Thanks for the questions, Jake. Those were great. All right, I'm going to switch back to slides. Give me 1 second. Did he leave again? Oh my God.
This is Paul.
All right, I think we can go back here. All right, press play. All right, where were we? Okay. Oh, that was the demo. Cool. All right. So we've also been going through data. We've been learning a lot, you know, and I think one of the things that we've been really trying to concentrate on is what are our major takeaways for improvement. How does the data that we are receiving from PTN align with the data we're seeing from Glitch Financial? So this is the orders received, essentially the price difference, the absolute price difference, right? As a percent between the orders received on Glitch on the PTN side, the price filled, and essentially price filled on PTN, and the actual price filled on Glitch Financial. So the relative threshold here, this is for crypto markets. So the relative threshold here that we've used is 0.1%. That's the typical fill on Binance. And what you can see, this is so whether it's negative, right, as in you're getting a better fill than what you got on PTN, or it's a positive, like it's a positive fill, meaning like it's a fill that's at a premium. We've mocked it all out and we're tracking this internally. So ideally, as I said, latency improvements are something we've really been concentrating on. Getting to a 1 second, sub-second system for execution of orders, this value will drop as time goes on. So we want to get as close to market, right, between what we see on PTN and what we see on Glitch Financial. And so we're just optimizing and improving systems so that as it works through our pipeline from PTN, streaming of data, R&D infrastructure with Kafka, to our Glitch Financial infrastructure with bots, everything is seamless and takes less time. So you'll see better execution with improved price differences between systems. So this is one of our key metrics that we're really measuring in beta. So again, it's hard to press down a key while you're talking. Just push to talk constantly. So one of the things like we're really measuring is this is a big measurable for us for the success of beta. Less on the performance side because we know there's bugs, we know there's latencies. It's more about can we improve on our key metrics to ensure success as we scale. Cool.
Okay.
Thomas, you want to hit on collateral?
I'd love to. So speaking on scale, you know, essentially the way I delineate this, the way I think about subnets, typically I break it down into infrastructure-based subnets and information-based subnets. And as the subnet wants to scale, an infrastructure subnet would handle more infrastructural capacity. So this could be like the number of requests that we see, the number of tokens that are handled, maybe the amount of GPU, whatever the metric is. Information-based subnets are improving the quality and scaling by either increasing the quality of information or potentially increasing the amount of capital, essentially the abundance of information that they're working with. So right now on PTN, each of our miners is trading with simulated account sizes of about $100,000. And that was specifically tuned. We made slippage models. Paul and Vince have curated them up to that size, probably a relative size of about $200,000 USD for slippage models. And essentially what that allows us to do is it allows us to get miners in the door, get familiar with our ecosystem. It allows us to attract more talent. But as we want to scale our system, what we want to do is introduce a system of collateral. And essentially what collateral is going to do is going to allow our miners to post alpha on chain, and that will determine the size of their portfolio with a risk to capacity ratio. So essentially, we use a drawdown of about 10% on PTN. So you would always be putting down 10% of your capital base in collateral. So if I want to trade with $1 million, I would put down $100,000 of theta equivalent, and I would now be trading with $1 million. So our plan is to change our incentive mechanism to introduce this capacity notion along with smart contracts to enable collateral from our miners. This will allow our miners to actually compete not only for the quality of their signals, but the size of their portfolios, thereby increasing the utility of Subnet 8 overall. So this not only aligns incentive with our miners, this also encourages our miners to focus their efforts on a single unified miner. It also allows us to dynamically scale the utility of our network along with the price of theta.